And I actually think that's where our action orientation comes from, the fierce energy. Because when we see something that we think is unjust and unfair, we should get angry, but we don't. We stifle it. We hold it down because we've been told that it's not attractive in a woman. So we don't say anything. And that's where our action comes from. When women in particular get angry about something, that's when they do something about it. I mean, this woman that I follow, Shannon Watts, is incredible. She started Moms Demand Action because after the Sandy Hook school shootings, she was like, I can't bear to watch my children go to school. It's terrifying. And she started this massive movement, right? Because of her fierce anger at what was happening, and nobody was doing anything about this. That is fierce anger at its best, right? That's when a woman says, I'm going to use this anger and channel it into something really productive.
Hello. And so my guest today is my lovely friend, Lisa Schreiber. Now, Lisa is a health and wellness coach. She's actually a National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach. Need to get that right. She is a writer. She's an author. She wrote a book called The Meal Deal, which is Blaze Your Own Trail to a Healthier Eating Lifestyle. Had to look that bit up. But lately, Lisa's also been facilitating women's groups, and that's going to form our topic today. So looking at how women are forming groups, coming together and tapping into their power, which Lisa's helping them with. And I think basically women are coming together, and what we're trying to do as women is really balance the energies between the feminine and the masculine. So, we're naturally nurturing and soft with our feminine energy, but we need to make more of our masculine energy, the more protective, fierce side, but to keep it balanced, because what I see is a lot of women who go into leadership roles that move too far into the trying to be masculine, which kind of we feel, and we'll talk about this a bit more, but we feel called to do that because we think, this is what is expected of us. We've got to keep up with the men. But when women step into their own power and do it their own way, we have shown that we are good leaders. So anyway, welcome to the show, Lisa. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Sue. I always enjoy spending time with you.
And did I miss anything out in your introduction? Anything you would want to add?
I don't think so. I mean, I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation. I'm seeing a lot of women's groups forming and women uprising and having enough of the status quo. And so I'm excited for this discussion.
Yeah. So what started this then? So you were, happily helping people with their health and wellness. And I know that came from your own background, from having health issues yourself. But what made you suddenly think, actually, I need to go and help women now?
Well, I mean, through my work, for sure, helping other women this kind of started a long time ago. I was a co-owner of a gym, and I would see women come in and they would, be sort of this patriarchal messaging that we get. We're supposed to stay small. Our bodies should be small. Our voices should be small. Everything should be small. And they would come in and you could see this hesitancy of, I don't want to bulk up. They would say it outright. I don't want to bulk up. And okay, we wouldn't even talk about it. We would just get into the workout. And after 2 weeks, they would say, I want more weight on the bar. I want to lift heavier, right? And so you could see this transformation happening for them, and you could see them standing upright, like they were more proud to be in their bodies because they were getting stronger, not because they were getting smaller. It was beautiful. And this started to transfer. I started to think about this because this is when I became a health and wellness coach. And I was like, this can transfer outside the gym, this kind of strength. This could be an inner strength as well. And so I started working with my clients on these mindset shifts of, this energy, this inner intrinsic energy and motivation that we have that we don't use as women because we are told to play small. That's been our role for centuries. So I guess it kind of started in the gym. And then, I saw this opportunity as I was working with my clients who thought they wanted help with nutrition and fitness alone. I started to see them empower themselves through this work. So that's sort of how it started.
Yeah, yeah, and that's brilliant. That's like a natural transition, and it's really good that you spotted that the women clearly were thinking, actually, this being strong thing is actually good.
Yeah.
Because when we are young, when we're girls, we are taught to be quiet, to be pretty, and like you say, as we go into our teens, we're taught to be skinny. We're not taught to be, we shouldn't be strong. We shouldn't be muscly. We should be these very feminine, girly girls with, care about your makeup and your hair because that's going to make you attractive. And that's great. We all want to be attractive, but why not be strong as well? Why? And I think historically women were very strong, particularly like in our ancestral days when men had to go hunting. The women were then responsible for keeping the village safe, and women, they did fight. They did have to fight enemies that would come to call. But along the years, obviously through centuries, we've just been, the burning of witches, being put down, not being allowed to vote, not supposed to work, you're supposed to bring up your children. We've been pushed down for all these years. Why are women now starting to rise, do you think?
Uh, I mean, if you look at the state of the world, it's not great. And I think I think women are trying to
Really?
maybe say, look, let's try a different way. This is not working. People are not being seen and heard. And that feminine energy, and I think we all have a mix of both. I'm sure I
Yeah,
know
yeah.
I've read a lot of Kristen Neff, and we have yin and yang energy, and we all have both. But what's happening is empathy is seen as weakness. And it's the complete opposite because it's such an important thing. The yang energy is more of the sort of assertive, action oriented, which is not necessarily a bad thing until it takes over and becomes this all encompassing, empowering, controlling thing. Whereas the women's energy is nurturing, and you have to have both because you can't plant the seed and watch it grow unless you nurture it. Right. So you have to have both. You have to have the planting of the seed, which is the action oriented move. And then you have to nurture it or it's not going to grow. And somehow we have missed out on that whole growing thing. And so I think it's so necessary right now. And I think women they're seeing this and they've had enough of the status quo. They've had enough of being treated as second class citizens. I think they're just done.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think because we've obviously had the vote for a long time now, and in most countries anyway, obviously not in every country. And, women go out to work now mainly because they have to, because you can't survive on one income alone in most families. So we're getting more freedoms. We're getting the ability to do more. So we're being almost let out the cage, if you like. We're not tied to the kitchen sink anymore. And so that freedom has opened up a stirring in us, that the wild woman stirring inside us that we used to embody many, many years ago when we were the healers, the protectors. We knew all about how different herbs worked and, how to forage for plants that were healing. We did all of that, but that got crushed over the centuries, like I said. And I think we're starting to wake up a bit more now. And like you say, with everything going on in the world, and we're looking at a world which is very patriarchal. The energy is totally unbalanced, and you can see that Mother Earth, who is a very feminine energy, is rebelling against that herself. She's saying, you're ruining me and I'm not going to stand for this any longer.
Yeah, that is a really interesting parallel, right? Like the feminine energy of the earth is saying, I've had enough too.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. When we need, I mean, we need to balance the energy. So how do we do that? What should we be doing to make sure that we're not too much on the feminine side or we don't go too much over to the masculine side?
I think there's a lot of different ways to balance. Some are and involve men too. So
Mm.
men have been brought up to think that they can't have empathy, that they can't show their feminine energy, and they have it. They've just been told not to show it. Women have been told the opposite. God forbid a woman should be angry
Yeah.
in public. In real life, it's the end of the universe, but it's not, right? We have this fierce energy. And I actually think that's where our action orientation comes from, the fierce energy, because when we see something that we think is unjust and unfair, we should get angry, but we don't. We stifle it. We hold it down because we've been told that it's not attractive in a woman. So we don't say anything. And that's where our action comes from. When women in particular get angry about something, that's when they do something about it. I mean, this woman that I follow, Shannon Watts, is incredible. She started Moms Demand Action because after the Sandy Hook school shootings,
Mm.
she was like, I can't bear to watch my children go to school. It's terrifying. And she started this massive movement, right? Because of her fierce anger at what was happening and nobody was doing anything about this. That is fierce anger at its best, right? That's when a
Mm.
woman says, I'm going to use this anger and channel it into something really productive. So I think we have to change the narrative. We have to start by changing the narrative. We have to start by allowing young boys and young men, and all men in particular, if they're willing to participate, to get in touch with their feminine energy and understand that this balance is what's necessary. I think that's just the beginning of it, but I think that's one way to start.
Mm. So the problem is, how do we do that with young boys? Because you've got to start small when you've got people like your president, like Donald Trump, and like the people like Andrew Tate in the world. How do we battle against them?
That's a great question. If it starts with the next generation, then it starts with awareness, first of all, on the part of parents, teachers, community leaders, people who are helping these young people out and seeing them on a day-to-day basis. Like you have to sort of take an interest in them and help them along the way, and understanding that it's not effeminate. It's not wrong to show your emotions. In
Mm.
fact, people will actually respond to you if you're authentic that way. So I don't know, because from my perspective, it's more about changing the feminine side of things, or not the feminine, but the female side of
Mm.
things. Like it's empowering women. And I haven't thought through enough how you balance the power. I don't even want to say
Mm.
power. I
Mm.
don't know what the word is, but how do you balance what young women in particular are learning about themselves and what young men are learning? Because I think this is a big disconnect, and this could be a huge problem. I'm seeing a lot of young women, especially in this country, who have sworn off men. They're
Mm.
just like, I don't want to have anything to do with a man. I'm not giving up my power anymore. I'm tired of this. And I don't know what's happening with young men. I hear a lot of different things. Some are that men are becoming more aggressive.
I think power is a misused word, because when we think of power, we think of the patriarchal system. But power is within us. And I think that women need to embrace their power. And I think they need to embrace it from when they are small girls, basically. That's what they need to be taught by their parents, like you say, by their teachers. But the thing is, it shouldn't always be on women to change. And this
No.
has all been the narrative for a long time. Like, women need to be more careful. Women need to dress differently, blah, blah, blah. No, we don't. We need to say this isn't,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not changing. I'm not changing for anything. This is me. You take me the way I am and you respect me. And I think that's the bit that's missing, the respect for each other, but respect for ourselves. When you are a young girl, you really need to be taught to respect your body, and nobody touches it unless you give them permission. You don't need to get yourself into a situation where you don't know how to say no to a guy or a girl even. And when you're a young boy, you need to be taught to respect yourself as well, but also to respect girls, not to treat them like the Andrew Tates of the world would tell you to. Women are different to men. We know that. And you're taught that as young people, but we still are both human. We still need to respect each other. And I think more needs to be done by parents, but particularly by schools, because children, they're in school most of the time. And I know teachers have an awful lot on their plate, but that's another issue altogether, giving teachers back the time. But I think that's where we need to start educating children from a very young age, that respect. In my day, if you didn't respect, you would be hit either by a teacher or by a parent. It was absolutely fine to clout your children. It's not right, and we shouldn't bring that back in any shape or form. But rather than using a stick, we can use the carrot. We can teach, and we can set example as well, because some parents aren't setting a really good example to their children.
And I think that's a huge part of the problem, right? Because it's conditioning that they've received their entire lives, and their parents received it their entire lives. So this is not something that changes overnight. This is something that I think we're in the beginning phases of even recognizing where this comes from. And that's the seed of changing it. When parents start to notice their patterns because of their parents is when they can start talking to their children differently.
Yeah. Because like you say, our parents, it's not their fault. It's the way they were brought up. They didn't know any different. But we need to break that system, because when you look at young people, there is so much mental health issues. There's so many children with problems now that they don't really understand what they're supposed to be doing. They get mixed messages all the time. They don't. I mean, I think that the pandemic had a big effect on young people, keeping them apart for so long and giving them like forced change. Children like boundaries. They like to know exactly what's happening from one day to the next. And when you suddenly say, no, you can't do that anymore, you can't do that, you've got to stay on your own, it makes it very difficult. And so I think that had a big effect.
Absolutely. And I think another thing is, on top of the boundaries, they also need autonomy. They need to feel like they matter. They need to feel like they have a role to play in the world, because then they feel beholden to society to some extent. I think that's a lot of what we've lost, is nobody feels like a part of society anymore. So they think it doesn't matter what I do. But if you feel somewhat responsible for yourself, for other people, you want to show up for them. It just makes sense.
Yeah. And a lot of the ways that young people would mix years ago, I don't know what it's like over in America, but in the UK, a lot of youth clubs have shut down. A lot of community centres have shut down. Young people aren't going to nightclubs anymore because A, they can't afford it, and B, they don't really want to drink anymore. So people socialize online. If that's all you do, that's not very healthy.
Right. We've lost so much connection.
So how do you think it affects women's confidence then? So when women join groups, how does it affect their confidence? Do you think they have to be confident to join in the first place, or do they join and then the confidence comes afterwards?
Oh, I absolutely think they do not have to be confident, because I think a lot of the confidence comes from being in a group of people where you realize you're not the only one who has these feelings and these fears and these experiences, right? And you become more comfortable around these women because you realize the common humanity, how much you have in common, and you start to feel like, I'm not alone in feeling like this. And when you're in a group like that, something magical happens. People start to really open up because they trust themselves. They start to trust the group. There's no pettiness going on. People are just looking out for each other. And after, meeting people, sometimes for the first time, sometimes it takes a little longer to really start to trust people if you have trust issues. But I think that those are the environments where that happens. You realize that you're not alone.
And are groups forming in many places now, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting because this woman I was talking about earlier, Shannon Watts, and if anybody can get this done, she is a remarkable person. But she has started these national. She wrote a book called Fired Up, and I don't remember the subtitle. I'm sorry. How to light your spark and come alive at any age, something like that. And it's a fantastic book. But she started these local bonfire groups because she believes that we need to do this on the micro level. And I signed up to be one of the local group leaders because I was so like, just, she's an incredible person and she knows how to get things done. And I thought this is an incredible movement that I have to be part of. And I was terrified to do it, honestly, because I've never really thought of myself as a leader per se. And then I thought, you know what? I'm the perfect person to do it in my town because uh, I think it's really important for women to start leading in whatever that looks like for them. In this case, I never thought of myself as having leadership qualities, but this was something I felt really called to do. So I stepped up anyway, even though I was terrified. And I started connecting with other women who were also terrified. And we started to relax into the conversations and started really feeling like we were in very authentic, safe spaces, is what we're creating. But she's doing this on a national level. So we're going to have a lot of micro level groups. And we're already seeing thousands and thousands of women join these small groups. Like I've been talking to some of the other bonfire leaders, and they've got 40 to 70 women in their groups after just one meeting. My group is a little smaller right now. I think there's like 5 or 6 of us. We're trying to grow it a little more slowly, a little more organically, but it doesn't really matter how it looks. The point is that we're starting to see these women searching for these kinds of environments because they're not getting it elsewhere, and they're really starting to connect with other women and seeing the power, this collective power, and how important this collective power is going to be in making big changes.
And so, what sort of changes are you expecting? What are you trying to achieve? What's the aim?
Well, so the 3 buckets that they call for in this group are personal, professional, and political. So we would love to see more women getting into political roles, right? Because that's where a lot of the big power is going to change. Yeah. And what's great about it is like if you have these little groups and a woman is going to run for city council or the school board or even something on a very local level, right? She doesn't have to show up alone at her stump speech anymore. She's got a group of women who are going to be there for her. So now she goes into these things way more confident. Yeah. So that's on the political side. The professional side is women who want to start a small business, want to, make their life their own and not work in corporate America. Or even if you want to work in corporate America, how does that look for you? We bring in, speakers who are in corporate America to talk about what that could look like for you if that's the path that you want to go. And then we do things personally, like it could be anything. It could be hiking. It could be having a group of women to go hiking with and talking about these kinds of issues with, because this is where our power grows, I think, is where we start talking about what we want. Nobody asks themselves, and it's a really hard question to answer, I think, which is why we don't even look at the question, but what is it that we want as women?
Yeah.
In general, what do we want out of life? And then how do we take very, very tiny steps to start going there? And I don't think we can do this alone anymore. I really don't. I used to think that, I think for a lot of women, we've been trained to believe that we can do everything alone. And it's so far from the truth. I've learned over the years of all the incredible women that I've met along the way, such as yourself. It just, you can't do it alone. And that's why these groups are so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So what do you think it is that you want personally then?
You called me out. Well, I mean, my biggest goal is to empower more women in whatever form that looks like. Now, I'm a writer by trade and I love to write. And so for me, it's growing an audience through my writing, basically more on Substack than anywhere else, and continuing to work individually with women so that they can see their own power and start asking these hard questions. And then as a coach, our main goal is how do you move forward? Because I'm not a therapist, so I can't look at like if you're informed by trauma or something like that. That's something that definitely needs to be taken a look at through someone who has that lens. But my role is to help you think through what's one small step you can take towards something that's calling your energy, that you're passionate about, that's calling to you, and recognizing that failure is not something that exists. It's just a learning experience. So let's try something together. Let's try something small and see what happens. Because a lot of the times when you try the thing, even if it wasn't successful, it sort of leads you in the direction of something else that might be calling to you. And then eventually you keep going and you start to find what's actually calling to you. It took me years. I was almost 40, I think, when I came into coaching. And I had been writing for a long time, but not about this kind of stuff. But when I found coaching, I knew I was so inspired by it and so called to do it that it was the first time in my life, I think, that I had to jump in. I mean, I wasn't confident at all, but I was so enthralled with the subject matter that I had to jump in. And I think that's what a lot of people will find if they start trying things out. And I think it helps to have a group of people, in your corner. It just does. It helps to have a group of women who support you along the way.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, my view is more like all encompassing, men and women. So as a confidence coach, obviously I want everybody to feel confident, but what does that look like? It's nothing to do with like, domineering power. It's to do with being confident in yourself, but also to do it from a foundation of love, kindness, and gratitude. So in my ideal world, everybody would treat each other with respect. Everybody would be kind, and it is kind of a nirvana. But why not? Why not? Why can't everybody be kind? Why can't we always be grateful for everything we have instead of wanting more, more, more? And why can't we treat each other like brother and sister? Basically, that's how I would like to see the world, and that's kind of what I like to bring into my coaching. So it's not just helping people to be more confident, but it's helping them to look at everybody in the same light and think,
Mm.
yeah, you are my brother, you are my sister. You might be different to me, but that doesn't matter. You're still a human like I am. And I've got a
Mhm.
long way to go on that, but it's not that it's not impossible.
It's true. I mean, I think it starts within,
Yeah.
right? It definitely starts within. We go back to the oxygen mask all the time. It's very hard to to see the best in others
Mm,
if we don't see the best in ourselves.
exactly. That's exactly right. Because I mean, like my issue was always not being confident, but being shy, and also having toxic relationships, which it's like this consequences, isn't it? Like cause and effect, like being
Mhm.
ignored as a child meant you're looking for love elsewhere, and then not seeing yourself as a strong person, seeing yourself as somebody not worth loving, you attract people that don't love you. That want to treat you like shit. And one day you think, I'm not putting up with this anymore. And then you find your strength. And that strength is always in you. The confidence is always in you, but you've just got to find it and you've got to bring it out. And when you say, now I'm strong, I'm not putting up with this anymore, you actually move to a higher level. And when you're at a higher level, you're leaving people down here, they can't reach you anymore. And that is, I think, all of these groups and coming together, all of the work that we do, that's what it does. It raises people up to the next level. And then they're not so affected by what's going on around them. They know how to stand up for themselves.
I think that's exactly right. I think when you come into a group like this, it can, and like you said, it can be male or female. Men have a lot of issues to work on as well. But
Absolutely, yeah.
you start to see that other people see you and respect you as a human being, and it helps you, I think, get there even faster because I think change is really hard, and it's
Mhm.
really hard to do alone. But when you're with other people who can sort of speed the process up for you because they value you as a human being, you get there a lot faster.
Mm.
I feel like we were starting to get there to some extent, and that's when the people who are in power now get scared. And
Mm.
that's when they have the power. Unfortunately, they have the power. And so they start to tighten the reins because now they're terrified that people are starting to figure this out. I think that's exactly what's happening. Because if you look at over half this country, they didn't sign up for this. And even the
No.
ones who voted for this, I don't think they signed up. The majority of them did not sign up for this. The cruelty, the inhumaneness of it all, I don't think most people signed up for that. And right, so the majority of people are decent human beings, but the people who aren't, they when they get scared, this is what they do. They crack down and they start putting laws into effect and they start treating people more inhumanely. And I think that's a good sign in a way because it means there are more of us out here who do want to see kindness
Yeah.
and people treating each other respectfully. There's more of us.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, there's more of us, but we don't have the power, unfortunately. But there
Right.
is power in numbers, which is why we need to come together. It's
Exactly. And that's why these
definitely
women's
power
groups
in
are
numbers.
so important, because that's exactly right. My old gym used to be called Strength in Numbers because,
Yes.
we love the idea that there is power in numbers.
Definitely, definitely. I might have told you this before, but there's a lovely story that always makes me smile. A very simple story about two rabbits that are being chased by a gang of dogs. And these dogs are chasing the rabbits, and the rabbits run, 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 and they get inside a log, and they get to the middle of the log, and there's dogs on either side, like barking and trying to get in. They can't get in, but the rabbits are stuck in the middle, so the rabbits can't get out. And so the female rabbit says to the male rabbit, "We're trapped in here. What are we going to do?" And the male rabbit said, "Oh, that's absolutely fine. Don't worry. We'll just stay here long enough until we outnumber them." And I love that story. We
Oh,
just
that's
wait until we
brilliant.
outnumber them.
Oh, I love that. Well, how long do you think that's going to take?
Not long for rabbits, anyway.
Exactly.
But
Well,
for
maybe
us,
that's
maybe a
the
bit
answer,
longer.
right? Maybe that's the answer. We just keep procreating and procreating until we have enough good, kind people in the world to overtake everything else.
Yeah.
That's a great
But
story.
I think for our way of doing it, we just have to keep talking to each other and keep reminding each other. And when somebody says something that's hateful, it's really tempting to say something hateful back. But that's just putting fire on fuel on their fire. You're just making it worse. You can't. And you're also coming down to their level as well. You need to stay high. So the only thing we can do is say things like, well, what you said, I don't agree with, and I don't think it's very nice. Whatever you think is up to you, but that isn't a nice thing to say. And then you can, say, because of this is my view, and they can take your view or leave it. And they'll come back and shout at you and whatever. But as long as you keep your high ground, in the end, they shut up. Because you're not arguing with them. You're just saying, that's your view. You can think whatever you like. This is what I think. I prefer to be a loving, kind person.
Yeah, and I think that's why these groups are so important though, because then you're not doing it alone. You don't
Yeah.
have to stand. You have a group of people standing in solidarity with you, and they're not afraid to stand in solidarity with you because there's strength in numbers. It's not just one person. It's not just two people. It's groups and groups that are getting bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden they are way outnumbering the bad stuff. And I think it becomes easier to speak up because you're going to get trolled probably, especially if you're putting yourself out there. But if you're not doing it alone, I think that's where the gift is. That's where
Mm.
people can use their voices when they don't have to do it alone. It becomes a lot easier.
Mm. So if somebody's listening and they want to either start or join one of these groups, how do they find them?
So right now, I believe they're only in the US. I'm not sure about Canada yet, but it's go to bonfiregroups with a plural.com. And you can see them. They're in cities all over the US right now. I believe in 20 or more cities right now. But you can also sign up to be a bonfire leader, which would be a fantastic thing for people to do as well. Even if you're nervous, there is such a demand for this right now. Women really want to be in these spaces. So if you don't have one near you, create one. It's a beautiful
Mm.
thing to do. And I'm telling you, from all the women I've talked to, the response has been phenomenal. So it's worth a try.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we need to spread it to other countries as well.
Yes, definitely.
And where can people find you then?
Well, right now I'm spending, like you, I'm spending more time on Substack than anywhere. So I think I'm not even sure what my handle is on Substack, but I think if you type in Lisa Schreiber, I think I will come up. You can
Yeah.
also go to my website at Lisa K Schreiber, and I would love to chat with anybody about any of this. I'm always just curious to know where you are now and where you want to go, and what are some steps that we can take to get there?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you. Is there anything that you think I should have asked you that I didn't, or is there anything that you
Oh,
want to add to finish off?
oh my goodness. Um, God, I don't know. That's such a great question. You always cover everything. I mean, you ask such thought-provoking questions that I think you're amazing at covering everything. And I will say, Sue,
Thank you.
you're such an inspiration to me. I mean,
Oh,
you really show people how it's how things get done. Like you take a concept and then you try things and you're not afraid to learn from them and then try something else and pivot when you need to pivot and include people that you think can help. And
hmm.
those are really powerful things that a lot of us wish we had and it's a
Thank you.
beautiful. I love
Thank
it.
you. Oh, bless you. Bless you. Right. Okay. So it's been absolutely lovely talking to you, and I will see you again.
Thanks for having me as always. It's so great to be here. I just love chatting with you all the time.
Oh, bless you. Thank you.